Alrighty. So good morning, everyone. My name's Nancy. I'm the projects coordinator at Pioneer Catchment Landcare. Our organisation is situated in Mackay, which is along the Queensland coast, just south of the Whitsunday Islands. We undertake land care activities from the Great Barrier Reef and its many islands to our east and over 100 k's west to the majestic Yungala region and the northern stretches of the Clark-Connors Ranges. We currently have 5 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. Our organisation has grown over the last 3 years to include commercial conservation services, school-based education and training, and large-scale land care projects. We're aiming to rely less on grant funding and more on those long-term contracts to keep our organisation stable. Our regional challenge in our area, it's not well documented in terms of regular and usable evidence in terms of our flora and fauna species diversity and the numbers. Locals know about our amazing endemic species such as the koalas, the quolls, platypus, Yungala honeyeater. However, our geographical location limits our ability to have year-on-year research projects that collect vital data of our flora and fauna. We unfortunately don't have the university students looking at doing PhD research up this way. We don't have many local experts or ecologists. We don't have the large environmental groups or the number of environmental groups to collaborate with. And our Queensland Parks and Wildlife services up this way are extremely limited in their funding and the number of staff they actually have on ground to undertake any kind of research projects. Because of this lack of data, we are finding it harder and harder to have those statistics, the data to back up our conservation projects, and therefore it's hard to compete against the increasing number of organisations Australia-wide and locally for funding. We know other locations in Australia have years and years of research and data. However, we are only just really starting. So to solve that problem, we've looked at 2 areas. And the first one is that collaboration between groups. As all you listeners know, collaboration is key. And bringing interested groups together to share knowledge and resources. The only problem with this strategy in our region is that these groups are few and far between, and the ones that we do work with in our region are stretched for funding, experienced and qualified staff, and available time and resources. So our next port of call is turning to our environmental enthusiastic community members and introducing them to the power of citizen science. We need those bushwalkers, the farmers, the peri-urban landholders to take up an active interest in what's in their backyard and have the skills to correctly document their observations and sightings. So this is where our story begins. So only just yesterday, we hosted our first annual Yungala National Park platypus count in the Broken River region of the park. We chose this location and the platypus as our first citizen science event for a number of reasons. Yungala National Park is one of the few places in Australia where the public can be confident of seeing a platypus and is a local tourism draw card. Sites were easily accessible for participants with varying levels of fitness. We surveyed the same sites as the Queensland Parks and Wildlife Service did in 2012, so we had a little bit of comparable data. The original study in 2012 was designed after concerns were raised by locals and tourism operators of material from adjacent dairy farms washing into the park's rivers during heavy rain. The survey measured microinvertebrates and platypus numbers at 3 different sites. Platypus are also a hot topic in our region at the moment, with the state government proposing to construct the world's largest hydro dam just north of the Broken River and bordering the national park. So due to this, we hoped our attendance numbers would reflect the community's concerns. Just to note, the survey areas are a fair distance from the dam's footprint, and the dam is not expected to impact these areas. Recognising the platypus and positively identifying one does not require an expert, so participants were able to survey the presence of platypus in small groups or solo, and our organisation didn't have to go to the expense of flying in and accommodating experts to achieve the objectives of the event. So the event went off without a hitch. It was great yesterday. We had a total of 16 participants join the survey. We introduced them to the concept of citizen science, gave them a general rundown on the ecology of platypus, a step-by-step guide to iNaturalist and the project that we had set up in iNaturalist so they could record sightings outside of the event, and why it is so important to collect this data and what it could mean to the conservation actions within our region. Each participant was given a clipboard with a survey sheet, the locations, and a survey timeframe, and sent on their way. Just some of the, just for the fun of it, I just added a couple of little sightings from a couple of the participants yesterday. So the weather was chilly and overcast, so it may have hindered some of our results. So lessons learned from our first citizen science event. So unfortunately, few platypuses were actually spotted, which could have been due to a number of reasons. The weather, the season, the time of day. Therefore, we're having that discussion to hold the event several times during a year. A few of the locations surveyed nil platypus, which coincided with the Queensland Parks 2012 survey results, and therefore these locations could possibly be dropped off the survey list and other locations added, which may be more suitable locations for platypus. We could encourage private landholders around the region to participate in the event, whether that's allowing participants onto their properties to survey their watercourses and dams, or arming the landholders with their own techniques to undertake survey activities themselves. Volunteers were happy to use just a simple survey sheet and hand it back to us for inputting into iNaturalist. The event was a great start to introduce the concept of citizen science. We understand that getting community members inputting data into nationally recognised databases is going to be a long-term project in our region, but we will continue to educate and encourage our community. We're also looking at survey events of other species in our region, especially those listed as threatened, endangered, or vulnerable. And any help from other groups is always greatly appreciated. And as this is not a new concept, so we're not inventing the wheel. Other organisations already know the do's and don'ts, and we're just starting to catch up really in our region. So yeah, so that was our first citizen science project. Thank you all for listening.